Hi, so today we're going to be talking about Army Pomorze and the German 4th Army and a bit of the 3rd Army. This is episode 2 of the 13 or so part series on the German invasion of Poland. Last episode, we talked about what I called the Moreland Front, so action in Mowa, action in Rzeszów, and the fight between 3rd Army and Polish Moreland Army. So in today's episode, episode 2, I'm going to talk about the action between German 4th Army and the Polish Pomeranian Pomorze Army. So first, you need to understand the geography of and the landscape of this area. This is the Polish corridor where the fight happens, and this is like a little panhandle almost in the Polish northwest that reaches the sea, the Baltic Sea, from like the main parts of western Poland and Greater Poland. And this actually separates German East Prussia from the rest of the country, like the mainland of Germany. So it is strategically important diplomatically, especially before the war, because Germany had been wanting that. There are a number of ethnic German civilians living in these areas, but it is under Polish control since the end of World War I, and Hitler wants to take it over. And in terms of military perspective, this is important because capturing the Polish corridor would allow the Germans to the German 4th Army to reach the 3rd Army and actually move forward, perhaps south to Warsaw or further east, whatever the cause. It's an important area, and it's covered by the Polish Pomorze Army. So the Polish army it was always very extended. Poland put a lot of military budget into its armed forces, and it cared about its national defense, but not as much on the national defense of the Polish corridor. Why? Because it's just strategically difficult to control. It is plains, there's no mountains, there's no large, wide rivers like the Vistula to prevent German invasion or breakthrough. And it was kind of seen by a lot of members of the Polish High Command as a lost cause, as it was bound to be captured by the Germans the first few days of the war, regardless of what the Polish did. But it was necessary, politically necessary, to put an army in this area because they don't want the Germans to just waltz into the area and not strike anywhere else and call it a day, because that's what the Germans did in Czechoslovakia. They just walked into the Sudetenland, although of course there was a Munich agreement for that to happen, but perhaps Poland feared that there would be a second Munich South Conference between the Allies and Germany, in which they would allow them to have the Polish corridor in return for extended peace, or the Germans, regardless of what the Allies say, just waltz into the Polish corridor. And if there are no divisions in the corridor, then it's lost. Poland can't claim war for it. And that was a major fear that happened. So the idea was, if you're going to go for the corridor, you're going for everything. You're going for all of Poland. You're going to war with the Polish nation. And that's exactly what happened in September 1st, 1939. Germany went to war with all of Poland, not just the Polish corridor. And so yeah, the Polish corridor had one army known as the Pomorze Front. Now, this wasn't a very good army per se, because, as I said, it wasn't the most important army. Unlike, for example, the Moreland army that did get sufficient resources in a lot of matters, because it was seen as something that can actually stop a German invasion, hopefully. But the Pomorze army was almost like a sacrifice that would be given to the Germans in order to delay the invasion of the main core areas of Poland for a few days or hopefully even weeks. And therefore, there was no priority in keeping the Pomorze army supplied in the highest quality and having the best ammunition, weapons, artillery, air support, things like these. It wouldn't have the best forces at this time. So the Polish army, of course, had an intensive conscription policy, so it would have a lot of men. So it could form 7 armies, which is an incredible feat, I must say, because the Germans opposed to the Poles have just 5 armies, and even if you include the Bernalog army, that's still just 6. So Poland managed to have a larger quantity of armies than Germany, although of course this data doesn't really mean much because each army has different varying levels of strength, and actually I think the Polish army was much weaker in general because it was outnumbered by the Germans, not only in manpower, but also in equipment, in tanks, in air power, everything. Half of the German Air Force was in Poland, and more than half of the army was against Poland. So it's a large force, and perhaps some of the swiftest movements in the early part of the campaign, the swiftest defeat of any Polish army was that of the Pomorze army, and it would be for exactly the reasons as I said. So the vulnerable army, the Pomorze army, was commanded by Lieutenant General Władysław Bożanowski, who is he's a former resident of the Russian Empire before he joined the Polish Legion, and then strived to work for Polish independence, and then became an officer in the Polish army. So the Pomorze army itself covers basically the entirety of the Polish corridor, and also a bit of the base of the corridor, if you will, around the areas of Grudziądz, Torun, Bydgoszcz, this area, and the northwest of Western Poland. And it would be allocated 3 infantry divisions to its cause: the 9th Infantry Division, the 27th Infantry Division, and the 15th Infantry Division. And in addition, there were 2 so-called National Defense Brigades, which were, well, infantry brigades that just had fancy names pretty much. That's really what they were. In the East Operational Group, there were 2 infantry divisions namely the 4th Infantry Division and the 16th Infantry Divisions, that will cover the eastern side near the city of Grudziądz against the German 4th Army, specifically the 21st Corps. And there would be the Polish Army to its south, which is not a part of it, not a part of Pomorze Army, but it's good to note that there's an entire army sitting to the south of it that didn't do much and weren't really attacked in the early days of the war, and that there wasn't just like no troops, no Polish troops south of it. There were an entire Polish army. So in the Chersk operational group, which is up in, you guessed it, Chersk, which is sort of near the town of Tuchola, where the Battle of Tuchola Forest comes from. The Chersk operational group consisted mainly of the Pomorze Cavalry Brigade, Pomeranian Cavalry Brigade. That would include a lot of Uhlans, Lancer regiments, that you'll see what these cavalry units can do. And in total, including the Chersk operational group and the East operational group, there's 5 infantry divisions: 9th, 15th, 27th, 4th, and 16th. There were 2 national defense brigades and 1 cavalry brigade. So furthest in the north, again, was Chersk operational group with the Pomeranian Cavalry Brigade, and then the 27th Infantry Division, which is commanded by General Drapela or Colonel Drapela. And then below that would be the 9th Infantry Division, and then below that the 15th Infantry Division. 15th Infantry Division would be the lowest division, the further south division in the Pomorze Army before the Polish Army starts. So the Pomorze Army was handed a lot of good men, many troops, a substantial amount. You could do a lot with 5 divisions and 3 brigades, but again, it didn't have the best equipment, didn't have the best defenses all the time. Sure, there were bunkers at certain places, but it didn't have the best defenses naturally, unlike the swamps and Army Modlin in the mountains in the Carpathians. So when all the German units started invading on September 1st, the Pomorze Army was somewhat disorganized, but more importantly, it was under some confusion, and it wasn't, and it lacked certain elements of order of what a normal army should have. And actually, I'm gonna talk about what happened initially. They offered almost no resistance in the start. They offered almost no resistance. But then a few hours passed and they gave a lot of resistance. And they were trying their utmost, their best, just like any other Polish force in this part of the war. And they would do very well for pretty much the first day, and after that they would slowly just collapse and disintegrate, and much of the forces would be gone in a few days. So somewhat similar to a Modlin army in that aspect. Another thing is the weather. The weather benefited the Poles in this area because the fog and the cloudiness of the first few days, September 1st, September 2nd especially, would have horrible weather for planes, so Luftwaffe activities cannot really occur in this area. There were, more eastern areas were more prone to Luftwaffe's attacks, and Luftwaffe cannot really attack anywhere in the Pomorze front in the early days of the war.